How much progress does a musician make in 10 years? Well, it's been 10 years since I last recorded the famous piece Gymnopédie No. 1 by Eric Satie. And in this video, I'm going to critique that old performance, tell you what I would do differently today, and then I'm going to record it again for the first time in 10 years, and you can tell me which version do you prefer. That video now has over 1.8 million views, which is amazing. And this may come as a shock, but I hate this video. I honestly really want to take this video down. I don't like how I play in it. I think my technique and my sense of musicality and interpretation has evolved over these 10 years, I hope. But I feel the way I was playing back then doesn't represent how I would play now, and so it's cringy to watch. Instead of taking it down though, I've decided that this could be a really great opportunity. Using the last 10 years of my musical development, I'm going to now critique that video and tell you what I would do differently today. By watching me critique my old self, you can see that a musician evolves over the years, and perhaps you can take the things I'm going to say and use it to improve your own playing. So here we go, let's start the video and start critiquing my former self. The first thing I noticed is the look of this video. I didn't do too bad of a job considering it was actually the very first time I ever attempted to set up lights and a camera and film myself. So this is actually in my mom's basement. She had kind of like a photo studio set up with some lights and a camera. So I just decided to take one of the pieces I was practicing and do this video. And at various points in this video, you can actually hear birds chirping in the background. That's my mom's pet birds. I'm about to really criticize myself here, but first, I want to point out that I do think what I'm doing here sounds nice. It's definitely pretty, and there's a lot of things, especially for what I was doing at the time, that I think are nice. This was very early on in my classical playing. I was really a rock musician at this time, and I had just cut my hair and was just getting into classical guitar. So some of these things I'm doing are pretty raw, I think. The first thing I'm hearing is that the tempo can be too fast at times. I sometimes rush and sort of distort this beautiful, slow ostinato. An ostinato is a repeating pattern throughout a song. And in this case, it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. For me, this pattern and the chords he uses gives the impression of kind of slowly floating through space. Boom, bee, boom, boom. It's very beautiful. That opening instantly puts you in sort of a trance. Very meditative, very mysterious. But I have the feeling on the recording that I really didn't understand this opening. What I hear 10 years ago is something like this. In other words, I'm bringing out the top note. G sharp, G sharp. But that's boring. The top note stays the same the whole time and is not really interesting. Instead, what's really interesting about this opening is the part that changes. What changes is the bass. A, E, A, E. For one, the bass line, but also, and maybe more importantly, it's the inner voices that change, and I think are the most beautiful part of the ostinato. So we have a C sharp, B, C sharp, and on top of that, we have E, D sharp, E, D sharp. And on top of all of that, we have the droning G sharp, G sharp. So for me, bringing out the inner voices is actually the most beautiful thing. At least that's how I think now 10 years later. Going deeper, what I would do actually is lean on the first chord and relax on the second chord. Lean on the first chord and relax on the second chord. Almost like we're on a boat. We rock from right to left, from right to left. And that's what creates that beautiful ebb and flow of the piece. That makes you feel like you're kind of watching the water come in and out on the shore. If you'd like to learn Gymnopédie on guitar, or just improve your guitar playing in general, one of the best ways, one of the fastest ways, is to get a one-on-one weekly teacher. And my wife and I have made an online music school called arpeggiato.com to make it easier for you to find an expert teacher. These are colleagues and friends of mine who I really trust and can take your playing to the next level. Please check out arpeggiato.com, and while you're there, check out all of our master classes and workshops. There's over 40 hours of material there that you can watch that'll make you a better musician. Use the code SATIE, S-A-T-I-E, at checkout to get 25% off your first pack of lessons. Back to the video. Another thing I didn't realize, and I actually remembered this, I did not realize what key I was in. The notes are strange in this piece. What chord is that? There's all these accidentals, 4 sharps. I knew where to put my fingers, and I used my intuition, but I didn't really understand the harmony I was playing, and therefore I think I missed quite a lot. I wish I could tell my former self the following. 4 sharps means we're in the key of E major. So the first chord, which starts on an A, can't be the root position chord E major, the 1 chord, the home bass. Instead, what we have is actually the 4 chord, A major, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. The 4 chord is based on A. So A major goes down to E major, the 1 chord. So in other words, the piece is a 4 chord going to a 1 chord, back to a 4 chord going to a 1 chord. The 1 chord is the point of relaxation. But Satie is too eccentric and wanted the music to be too maybe impressionist to be so simple. So he makes each one of those chords into a major 7 chord. This is a very jazzy chord. Very beautiful dreamlike chord. Instead of the normal chord, the beautiful major 7. You can hear it a lot in jazz and in bossa nova. That sound. So 10 years ago, I didn't actually know that, and I think it led me just to kind of play nothing. I just played simple, thinking that this is not interesting, and what's interesting is about to come. But the ostinato pattern by itself is the foundation of the piece, and I think I missed that nuance at the time. So now, I think I would shape this opening a bit better, and bring out those beautiful inner voices. Let's listen to some more. I think I'm doing a good job here at actually separating the melody from the accompaniment. So the melody is the sort of the singing part, that if there were lyrics, you could sing that part, and everything else is sort of the backup band, right? So in classical guitar playing, we often bring out the melody more than the accompaniment, and I'm doing that here. But what I notice is that the second I start the melody, I speed up. Let's listen to that again. How suddenly it gets faster. I started 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. I set up the meter 1, 2, 3, and the second the melody starts, it sounds like 1, 2, 3, suddenly fast. And for me, this destroys the beauty of that moment, which is the singer who is singing on top of that beautiful foundation in the first 4 measures. So as you'll hear in my new performance at the end of this video, I'm going to try to keep the pulse steady while the melody enters. Hopefully I'm doing it. I think the reason I'm speeding up here is very natural. It's because I'm trying to crescendo. I was aiming here. And as a result, I sped up. So when you crescendo, it's often easy to speed up. This is a trap. You have to be careful. You know, as we're listening, I'm realizing another thing I really failed to do 10 years ago was I never actually looked up the original version for piano. Real quick, if you don't know anything about Erik Satie, he was a pianist in the 19th century, and he was a pretty eccentric dude. He was quite bizarre. He wrote pieces that were supposed to be repeated 840 times. He only ate foods that were white in color. Apparently, he founded his own religion. And he encouraged his audience to actually ignore his music and treat it as background ambient music. So Gymnopédie is actually a set of 3 pieces that he composed in the late 19th century for piano. The title Gymnopédie seems to refer to something about ancient Greek dancing, some type of festival. And all he really writes is lent et douloureux, which means slow and painful. And he writes 2 P's, which means pianissimo, very soft. Since this is a transcription, meaning it was originally for piano and being arranged for the guitar, it's so important, everybody. Look up the original version. All you have to do is Google the title of the piece and then imslp.org. There you'll find many versions of the piece for the original instrument and arrangements, and take a look at the original version, see what markings the composer gives you. It's so much good information. I have to admit that for me, the cringiest part of watching this video is how I move. Of course, how one moves when they play is up to us, it's preference, and each person has their own personality and style. That's all fine. But the thing is, I remembered at the time, I was new to classical music, I was watching classical performers, and I saw them doing this type of thing, and I think at the time it wasn't always authentic. I think 50% of what I'm doing here is sort of acting, and that's what I really can't stand when I watch this, to be honest. In the last 10 years, a lot of what I've been doing is figuring out what is this thing that we're doing here? Why are we playing this plucked instrument, and making sounds out of it? As Shakespeare said so beautifully, isn't it strange that sheep's guts should hail souls out of men's bodies? Sheep gut being the strings that were used historically until the 1940s actually on guitars. So he's saying, isn't it weird that we're taking sheep intestines and putting it on wood, and then people are so moved when they listen to it to the point of crying? Isn't that strange? Yeah, that's weird. And as someone who spends their life trying to play as beautifully as possible out of these instruments and moving myself and others, it's completely natural to do some movement. Some things require some movement to really play well. And I think we're kind of like actors as performers. We have to embody the affect or the emotional content of the song. I firmly believe that, and I try now to only do movements and faces. I don't think about them. Nothing I'm doing is because I think people want to see this. If I move now, it's because it just happens. If I'm making a face, it's just what happens as a result of trying to be emotional through my instrument. Back then, 10 years ago, I was doing that, but something else on top of it. I think there was some extra artificial movement and swaying going on that's, for me, too much, at least now. Maybe in 10 years I'll hate what I'm doing now. One thing I did kind of intuitively on this recording is I kept that 1, 2, 3 pattern going at the very end, and I went 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But in fact, if you look at the music, it's really just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I think today if I was to do it again with the retard, with slowing down to end the piece, I would play 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So here we go. Let's record the whole thing. And in the comments, please tell me which version did you prefer, 10 years ago or today? As you just heard, this is how I feel about the piece at this very moment, but how am I going to feel about the same piece in 10 more years? Perhaps I'll be making fun of this version just as much as I did the last one, but that's okay. This is what it means to be an artist, I believe. As we mature, as we have life experiences, as we work on music, our technique, our conception, we use all of that to interpret what's on the page, to be emotional, to tell a story. And of course that changes over time. In fact, maybe if I heard myself playing in 20 years right now, maybe I wouldn't like it, but all that matters is at that point, it's the most beautiful thing to me. Thank you for watching. I have lots of resources out there, educational resources, if you want to learn how to improve your guitar playing. The first is my online music school, Arpeggiato. That's a place where you can have one-on-one lessons on Zoom with my expert teachers. These are colleagues, friends of mine who I think are fantastic and can help you learn a plucked instrument. Then I have online courses like classicalguitarpro.com where you can do a self-paced course at home. This course takes you from knowing nothing all the way to playing recitals. Lastly, if you want extra guitar tips and want to support my YouTube channel, the best way is to check out my Patreon. Like I said, there you get lots of perks. You can even have a lesson with me and directly support the work that I do. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment, tell me which version was your favorite one, and I'll see you next time.